welcome to another episode of the Tell Nut Show. It's actually our first episode of season 3. As always, we're your hosts. We have the lovely Kirsha Fox, author of Son of Deception and The White Leaf Child. She's a homeschooling mom of 4, avid gamer, and reader.
And my co-host is Julia J.K. Allen, editor, author, and author coach. She's a fantasy and horror author who loves to put magic on everything. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Our guest today is actually a very special, very old friend of mine. We used to talk way back in the 90s. We are having LL Standage, Amy to her friends. She's been making up stories for her entire life. In high school, she decided she wanted to be an author and began writing the most cringeworthy epic fantasies, which sadly will never see the light of day. I definitely had a hand in that. Mm-hmm. When she isn't writing, she enjoys laughing with her husband, playing Zelda with her kids, drinking herbal tea, getting pedicures, traveling, and eating food. She loves chocolate and geeks out over everything having to do with England. She lives with her family in the very sunny, cactus-infested fire hazard known as Mesa, Arizona.
Yes,
we're so excited to have her.
Yeah.
Hello.
So I have to ask, what's your favorite tea?
My favorite tea is, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's something kind of nutty, kind of, it's very fallish. It's one that I get on Amazon, and it's very delicious, and it turns pink.
Oh, I'll have to message you after the show to find the name of that, because my favorite tea that's herbal, I can't even pronounce. It's the rooibos or whatever.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, I like that kind too.
I always kind of say it super fast because I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. So I'm just like, rooibos, that one? Yeah.
Right, good stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a tea that turns the liquid like more purple. It's blue purple, and it makes it feel really magic. It's just elderberries.
Nice.
It's really yummy.
That sounds fantastic.
You might have to message that one to me, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you said in high school you decided you wanted to become a writer. So tell us a little bit about your writing journey.
Well, when I was in high school, I began writing just little stories at first, and I loved movies at the time. So I thought, I want to be a screenwriter. That sounds like a lot of fun. And when I was a senior, I was given an assignment in my English class to interview someone with the career that I wanted. And so my teacher gave me the name of a screenwriter, just a local guy. He wasn't anybody famous, but he was very kind to me. And I interviewed him and found out that once a writer sells their screenplay to a production studio, for example, it belongs to them and they can change it however they want. So I thought, I don't really like that. I want to keep my stories the way that they are. So that was when I decided, well, if I write books, then they can't stray too far from the book. It just goes to show how naive I was back then.
Right.
But that was when I decided I wanted to be an author, and it's really incredible. I've looked for that teacher since then to kind of thank her for the inspiration, but I've been unable to find her. So, Miss Shelley, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I love that story. Wow. I think that a lot of teachers are incognito on social media, though. They're like on purpose to want their students to find them later. So
yeah. Probably. But she was very supportive, so I'm really grateful to her. And began writing my first novel at probably 16 or 17. And yes, Kirsha actually has a character in that novel, as do I. So and in my bio, when it says cringeworthy, that's not an exaggeration. Definitely had a lot to learn back in those days about writing novels, but and still have a lot to learn. But I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I've said it before with other guests where I feel like those self-insert early stories are just part of the process that most writers actually have to go through. The same way that an art student would copy the masters or trace to learn their craft. So I think everybody has to go through that stage to become a good writer.
It's a rite of passage for sure. Yeah. The most embarrassing scenario you could possibly imagine as a writer we've all been through.
Of course, you have
Yeah.
to be bad before you can be good.
Right,
Before you
right.
can learn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about the genre you write and
I
why.
write urban fantasy. And the reason I write urban fantasy is because I feel like there's this immersion that can happen. It's, for example, you take Harry Potter, which is middle grade urban fantasy,
Mhm.
and it's almost as if, yeah, this could exist in your
Right.
imagination. It only exists, but you can put yourself in that world so much easier because it's our world, the real
Mhm.
world, and has these amazing, magical, fantastical things happening and these grand adventures. So I love that chance for total immersion. And I don't think that there's a lack of immersion in any other genre, but that's what I really enjoy writing as
Mhm.
well as reading myself. So um, that's what I'm doing right now. But I also like to dabble in um, romantic fantasy, some historical fiction, and but right now, urban fantasy is my focus.
Yeah, I love that world in another world that's like kind of hidden, like you said,
Mhm.
behind the door of our world. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
really
Mhm. It's actually pretty convenient. When you're writing a high fantasy, you're like, what do they do for lights? How are they
right.
doing that now? Do they have toilets? Like, how do they prepare food? You have to think about every nitty-gritty detail, and you
Right,
can't take it for
right.
granted that things are going to be the same.
And then
So,
trying to describe it without using words from our life,
yes,
is very
Yes.
tricky
you
too.
can't
Yeah.
info dump and, you know, uh,
The
it's
world building is
Right.
definitely challenging when you're writing high fantasy.
mhm,
I also enjoy writing urban fantasy because it's like world building light version, like the
mhm.
light
Mhm.
branch you get at the store, you don't have to do half
Yes.
of it.
You only really need to bring up what is different, what is new, what is
Yes,
changed.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I love to read urban fantasy. There's some. You're right. It's much more immersive. You can really get into it a
Mhm.
lot faster, and it's so fun to see the different spins you can take on little everyday things that turn out to be magic.
Right.
Right, right.
Exactly.
All right. So, what does your writing process look like? How do you go from ideas to finished draft?
I laugh a little because I haven't started a new project in quite some time,
Mhm.
but um, I can tell you a little bit about how got the idea for my first book that I published. Not the first book I ever wrote, but the first book I published.
Mhm.
Um, it starts with a what if. What if someone saw a mermaid laying on the beach in La Jolla, California? What would happen? And that kind of started the gears turning that led to my first published novel, Fathom.
Mhm.
And so I think that's really what it comes down to is you ask yourself a question, what if, and then you find this scenario. And sometimes that's the catalyst, and sometimes it's a character, a
Mhm.
person that kind of springs into life in my brain, and I think, well, story, how what is their conflict and what is there, and you have I really like to establish what it is that is holding them back from their goal in the beginning, and because that makes it a little bit easier to write it out. And I am a plotter. I like to outline my books, even though I sometimes get antsy and don't finish the outline and just want to start drafting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But I like to have a guideline. So I will start with the what if, the character, some world building. Yeah, that and things kind of go from there. I have to brainstorm a lot. I listen to a lot of music. Um, I used to run a lot, and then since 2020 kind of fell off that wagon, but
Mhm.
I'm getting back on. So I'm really excited to be getting back on that wagon because that helps me to exercise my brain while I'm exercising my body. I
Absolutely.
come up with the ideas while I'm running. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell
Yeah.
my writing
Yeah.
process: plot, draft, and then edit till
edit until you're clean.
till I die, you know.
Right, right. No, there is something to be said about getting the blood pumping. It also pumps to your brain.
Mhm.
You would never catch me running, even in the zombie apocalypse. Just let them take me. I am not a runner. I did in high school, and now I can't. My body is like, no, you're
It's when I say running, I use the term very loosely. I am
right,
more walking fast
right,
with a
well, on
little
your
bit of a
toes.
bunny hop.
Yeah, right, right. No, that's
Yes.
exactly how I used to run. I would just do like short, tiny strides, and it was just it was
Mhm.
a
Exactly.
struggle.
It's not pretty.
No, no, no.
I can definitely relate. Whenever I start getting like blocked, I don't know what else to write. I start cleaning my house, not only because we're
Right.
moms and we have to clean our house, but it like something about the movement can just jostle those
Mhm.
ideas out as you're just
Yeah.
going. You can kind of
Yes.
space out and do your thing. You go on autopilot, and that frees your mind up to do other things.
Mhm.
Right,
So,
right. That's such a great way of putting it.
and then my house is clean. It's great.
It's amazing. It's
Ah,
also a
yeah.
good way to procrastinate writing, you know,
Yes.
Right,
got all this
right.
laundry I gotta
Yeah.
fold.
The fridge needs to be organized again, right?
Right.
So, like when you have those things looming over you, like you're like, I got to get
Right.
that done so that I can breathe.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah. That's the fun part of kids is you're never lacking a mess. Anywhere in the house, there's gonna be a mess somewhere.
Never.
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
All right. So you said you listen to a lot of music when you write. Is there a certain type of music that you like to listen to?
Oh, absolutely. I have Amazon Prime Music, whatever that's called, and I like to listen to there's a couple stations that I listen to. One is Two Steps from Hell. They write a lot of trailer music. It's the very big instrumental epic kind of music. It's
Cinematic.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. That
very
sounds
cinematic.
great. Mhm.
It's really fun, and that's when I'm writing something that's adventurous and high stakes and high action. I listen to that. Or there is a piano player named Helen Jane Long, and she also has a station that have you heard of her? She's amazing. And her and there's another guy, I'm going to say his name wrong, Ludovico Einaudi, something like that.
Okay.
Just beautiful. And that's when I'm writing something a little more low key, maybe something romantic, and that really gets the emotions flowing. And so those are the two things I mainly keep to, not anything with words
Okay. Yeah.
unless unless there's a song that really the lyrics just describe
Mm.
the book perfectly. And then I will listen to that on repeat until I get tired of it. And
Right, right.
that's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's mainly what I listen to when I'm writing and when I'm brainstorming.
I find that music is very helpful as an aid to writers. Just listen
Mhm.
to like the soundtrack of your book. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I'll have to tell you, I had to write a death scene in one of my books, and it was very difficult. I
Mhm.
didn't think it would be that difficult, but it was. And I listened to the track from the fourth Harry Potter movie when, a spoiler alert, when they find Cedric's body outside of the
Mm,
maze
mhm.
and the Triwizard Tournament, and it's just this heartbreaking melody, and I listened to
Right,
that
right.
over and over and over while I was writing that scene, but it was very helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, also heartbreaking.
Yes.
Mhm.
I know there's authors out there who like enjoy killing off characters people love, but I always struggle because I'm like,
Yeah.
but they're my babies. Yeah.
Yes. I
Right.
don't enjoy it, but it's necessary for the plot,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Tragedy happens in real life, so it can happen in
Mhm.
our writing as well. Do you think that there is an important part to writing that's maybe more important than other parts?
I think the most important thing about writing is being able to touch hearts,
Mhm.
and, we all want to feel something from a safe place. And being immersed in a book allows us to feel these things, whether we want to be in an adventure or if we want to be frightened or
Mhm.
inspired. I think and that's why sometimes we enjoy reading sad stories. or stories that don't necessarily have a happy ending. We want to feel something, but we want to feel it from a safe place. And I think that that is the most important thing about creating these stories, is taking someone along with you on this adventure so they can feel something and almost grow with the character.
Yeah.
And it makes us happy, and it makes us better people to be able to empathize with an individual, even if that individual is fictional.
Right. No, I love that's a very poignant answer, but I love it. I always say that reading teaches empathy because that's how we learn to see other people's perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. All different situations, races,
Mhm.
walks of life. It really is, and it's unifying.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I
Yes,
think
it
that's
is.
that's also important.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I love that answer.
And there's something about fantasy that allows you to really explore those themes
Right.
in a safe way, but in a way that really helps people reach that empathy. And you can really hold a mirror up to a
Mhm.
lot of people in society, in a way that you couldn't do with other genres.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you like kind of the focus is on you're in a safe space but able to access these emotions that maybe don't feel safe all the time.
Right.
I
Exactly.
love that. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything that you feel that other authors might neglect in their writing that maybe they should watch out for?
Um, that's a difficult question because I feel like there's so many authors out there that are so much better than me.
Ah, right.
That are so good at what they do. If I could maybe talk to aspiring writers or
Mhm.
writers who are trying to get their books out there, it's don't sell yourself short by neglecting part of the process. Whether
Mm,
you're a traditional published author or an indie published author like myself, we still have to go through a process
mhm,
that polishes that story to the very best it can be. And sometimes that takes a lot of work, and sometimes it takes a little bit of money.
mhm,
Sometimes it just takes a lot of patience. So I think that the number one thing that we need to remember is whatever way we are pursuing this writing career, we need to go through that process. We need to make sure that it's professionally done. And
mhm,
some of the books that I've read that maybe I didn't finish or that I had a hard time connecting with the main character, it's because maybe the author didn't go through that process, or maybe they did and they just didn't find the editor that really clicked with them and their story. But
mhm.
again, to each their own, and there's going to be stories that people connect with much differently than myself. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I guess that's the only thing I could really think of, is that we have to follow that professional process from
Right.
start to finish. So,
Yeah, it's about refining things and polishing
mhm.
after you get the bones down, adding
Right.
the flesh, adding the skin, the
Yes.
pretty things,
Yeah, and it's
after the
not
meat settle.
easy.
Yeah, it isn't.
It's it
Right.
requires a lot of patience, and it, it's it's very hard sometimes, but the end result is so much better than what it could have been.
Right.
So I encourage everyone to really try hard to get that process down
Mhm.
and
Right.
make it as professional as you possibly can, because you are a professional. So treat it like a
Yeah.
job.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. I feel like as an editor, like I always say, like, good covers will sell your first book, but good editing helps sell your second book. And so that's something to
Yes.
keep in mind, that editors are great because they get another pair of eyes on your story. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times you've read that thing 100 times, and so your brain's
Mhm.
filling in what you know is supposed to be there, rather than what's actually on the page
Hmm.
being seen for what is on the page. So editors can
Mhm.
be really helpful, but everything with indie publishing is time or money. So you take the time
Mhm.
to learn how to do it yourself, or you pay a
Mhm.
little bit of money to have someone else do it. But it's
Exactly.
definitely worth the process to go through. Yes, I feel for most people. I understand that not everyone can though. So
Oh,
um,
for sure. I understand
yeah,
that too. And there's different ways to go about it that don't cost as much
right.
time or money. but
beta readers are a great option.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yes. Being in the indie community is like there's so many people ready to reach out and support you and help
Mhm.
you along your path. Like you need to utilize those tools. But yeah, you bump into other authors who, skipped a few steps because they feel they couldn't afford it or they just didn't want to do it or
Right.
they got cornered
Mhm.
and just put it out there. And sometimes I've messaged them and I'm like, so some issues.
Right. Mhm.
But nothing will turn away your readers so fast as just a badly edited book that is riddled with mistakes or
Yeah.
the language isn't quite working or you
Right.
know so it's a very crucial step that just
Right.
really cannot be skipped.
Yeah. And I really like what you said about the community being there to support one
Mhm.
another. And one thing that I've
Absolutely.
always stuck with is we are not competitors, we are
No.
colleagues,
Mhm.
because there's readers for everyone. And when you're writing the same genre or even subgenre as the next author, you can be partners in what you're
Mhm.
writing because their
Mhm.
readers are going to then become their readers and vice versa. So we are
Right.
definitely partners in this work. We're not competing. So we can
No,
support one another.
absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not pie. There's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first book
Yeah.
took almost 2 years to write, and most
Mhm.
people, like, if a strong reader can read it in a day, like,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
like there's enough readers to go around.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Readers are voracious oftentimes. So we're
Yes.
lucky that, yeah, we don't have to see each other as competition. Absolutely. All right. Okay, I'm going to ask this to you as a writer and a reader, so your answer can be different. Do you think plot or characters is more important?
I love this question. And I have I do have an answer, but it's kind of a kind of both.
Right,
Is
right.
that cheating to say
No,
both?
ideal world is both. Yes.
Right. I think that character is most important because the character will drive the plot and you will
Yeah.
see the character's arc through that plot. However, every character is a different person and the lessons that they are going to learn are going to be learned with their plot, not the plot of any other story. Not to say that it wouldn't be fun to drop, for example, Harry Potter into the middle of Pride and Prejudice, and see what
Right.
happens. That would be hilarious. But would Harry become who he is if he was in Regency England? Probably not. He'd become
Right.
something different. So honestly, both are important, but I think character just edges out just a little bit more than plot because they drive it and they are essentially what the reader falls in love with.
Absolutely. Characters, people are world, and that's what we relate to as
Mm.
readers.
Mhm.
I think that also, if you ever get stuck with the plot, ask yourself what your character's motivations are, and that'll help you figure out what to do
Yes.
next. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just laughing about the Harry Potter and Regency. Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book, so I'm like, he would be Mr. Darcy before he proposes. He would need the dressing down. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I just pulled that one out of the air. I'm looking at my books on my shelf and that one and
right,
that one. Okay.
right, right.
Be a
Happens
good
to be
writing
my favorite
exercise.
book, so I love that look that you thought was
Some of my
going.
favorites as well. I love them
Right.
both.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because, like, most of the time, the characters' motivations are quite clear. It's getting them
Mhm.
there. That is the tricky part for me. All that annoying middle part between
Oh
beginning
yeah.
and end.
The
I
The
can
messy
get,
middle,
middle.
yes. That middle
I'm
50% is the worst. Yeah.
I'm constantly asking myself, like, should I just time jump? Should I just time
Oh
jump
yeah.
ahead? Like not even worry about all that pesky. And then
Right.
they walked
Yes.
50 miles and they were there, like, let's get back.
Because who wants a travel log, right? Oh,
Yes,
Right. Oh my
I
gosh.
mean,
exactly.
that is
Oh,
the
it's so
entirety of Lord of the
challenging.
Rings is the journey. So
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
hard to know what part of the journey is important to flesh
Right.
out and which can just, that doesn't, we'll just
Yeah.
synopsize it. It's fine.
And then a few
Right.
days went by, and then this happened.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Oh, I think, yeah, a good thing, like, because some people kind of do the extreme where they're like, if it doesn't move the story forward, I'm cutting it. But like at some point, you need to have character development. So you
Mhm.
can have that boring conversation on their day off when
Yes.
and they're tidying up the house, but they're like getting to know each other. Like that's an okay scene to have as long as it serves the purpose of like character development. Because sometimes
Exactly.
people cut out everything, and then it's just like, but they just met and now they're in love. Like, how did it happen in between? Like, yeah.
Yes.
Oh goodness. Yeah.
This is a tricky business. Such a
Yeah.
balancing act between everything, character and plot and details and editing and just
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
yet
we're
Author
gluttons for
is
punishment.
right. I know. All of us are kind of a little bit masochist, because we give ourselves such a
Yes.
hard job to do. Yeah.
And yet it's fun. It's
and yet
so
it's fun.
fun. It's
You
fun to
couldn't
create
face
worlds.
up.
Right. We get to daydream for our job, so we can't
Mhm.
complain too much.
And talk to our imaginary friends and put them in all
Right.
kinds of scenarios and
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I always laugh because people think like talk about like shower arguments or like they
yes.
practice conversations. It's like that is what writing is. You just practice these
Mhm.
conversations and get really into it, and then you just write
Yep.
it down and pretend
And then
that
you
you
put it on
don't.
paper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you just
exactly.
pretend the last hour you weren't having a fight between like a fictional boyfriend and girlfriend.
Oh,
I love
yep.
Yeah, my characters definitely talk to me. Sometimes I'll write something and one of them will kind of tap me on the shoulder and go, "Are you working through something right now?"
That wasn't me. Yeah, they'll just be like, that wasn't me calling you out. Yeah.
Oh, hey, write my story. I'm stuck on this cliffhanger, lady.
Over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that happen to me too one time. I have this story that's kind of on the back burner right now, but my
Mhm.
character came to mind and she named herself Bess. And I thought, she's a young woman named Bess in like modern day America.
Right.
Why Bess? But it just fit her. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's odd how sometimes characters name themselves.
Oh
Whereas
yeah.
her romantic
Right.
counterpart, he refuses to name himself. I cannot find his name.
Oh no.
That's been
Yeah.
quite a challenge. We'll
Yes.
figure it out.
You're like, "What about this one?" He's like, "No, not that."
Yeah.
Right. Anything
That's
but
not
that
it.
one. Yeah.
Naming people is hard.
He's been a little annoying. Bess was easy, but he's annoying.
Right.
Mhm.
Holding out for the perfect name. Yeah.
Yep.
So, who is your favorite author, and what do you think it is that they do best?
Oh gosh. See, I knew this one was coming because you always get asked who your favorite author is. That's a very difficult answer because I have so many that I love.
Mhm.
But lately I've really enjoyed Trisha Levenseller. And I think what I really like about her, and what I like about a lot of my favorite authors, is the way they describe their world and their characters is
Mhm.
so engaging. You forget that you're reading, you are picturing the story almost as if you are there.
Mhm.
And I think that Trisha is amazing at that. And so is another one of my favorites is Bridget Kemmerer. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of her books. It's A Curse So Dark and Lonely. What is it? Defend. What is it? Defy the Night. That's another one of her books.
Okay.
So good. And she just creates these scenarios with such beautiful prose. And another author that's really good at that is Shannon Hale. She writes mostly middle grade, but she's got some young adult and adult novels as well. And just lyrical prose. It's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And another author who may not be as well known, but her name is Sarah B. Larson. She's one of my personal favorites. And I got to meet her last weekend at a writer's conference, and she is
Oh yay.
absolutely divine. She's an amazing person in real life, and she's
Yeah.
incredibly talented. Highly recommend. She writes young adult fantasy, and she's really great if maybe you have a teenage child who wants to read, maybe is having a hard time. If you're having a hard time finding something appropriate for the teenager, maybe their maturity level is at a place where you don't want certain content, she's a
Right.
really great way to start. I love Sarah B. Larson. And it's the same, just these descriptions. She can create this tension that you're fanning yourself, but nothing steamy is happening.
Yeah.
Well, I love
He's
those.
really great.
It's like the Darcy hand flex, where it's just
Yes!
moving his hand, and yet your heart is just, you know,
It's amazing.
authors can do that, where
Yes.
just the smallest things get your heart pumping more than they
Mhm.
would if they had actually kissed or anything had happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And on that
yeah.
note, Jane Austen, she has an incredible way of understanding human behavior. The
Mhm.
way that her characterization is so realistic and spot on. It's a
Right.
model for any author to study Jane Austen and her
Yeah.
characterization. Just chef's kiss. She's
Oh my
amazing.
God, the way she takes like these everyday situations and makes them
Mhm.
so dramatic. You're like, they're going to tea. You know what I mean? Or even like
Yes.
when Jane's going to visit Mr. Bingley on the horse and then she's like, oh, it's gonna rain. Like, if you're just like, no, what are you doing? You know, but like
Yeah.
it's so engaging and dramatic, but it's like the most mundane thing that's happening, you know.
Yeah.
And I just love how she makes everything entertaining when she writes about it, you know, like even going to tea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Kirsha said, the hand flex. I mean, that was an
Yeah.
interpretation on the film, but
Right.
it's still a
It's
good
so yeah,
nod to Jane Austen's style. The smallest
yeah.
thing creates such an impact. So
Yeah, it like hits you in the gut when you see that
Mhm.
hand flex and you're like, "Ooh, he likes her." Yeah, they touch hands. Yeah, it's so exciting. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Those moments where you shut the book just so you can scream for like a few minutes, and then you
Yeah.
okay, and you
Let
open
out
the
the
book
Mhm.
again.
squeal. Yeah, let out the squeal and
Yeah.
then collect yourself and continue. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. Okay. What do you think you have learned from the writing process?
What have I learned from the writing process? I have learned that the book will not write itself. And I joke, but it's true. Yeah, really,
Right.
there's a acronym in the writing world that stands for butt in chair, hands on keyboard. Just
Mhm.
sit
Right.
and that's really the thing that I've learned is that it's not going to happen unless you make it happen. And so that's one thing I've learned. It's not going to happen unless you make it happen. Another thing I've learned is you can make it happen. When I was pursuing publication, originally I wanted to do traditional, as many writers do. And I told myself I was going to pitch to an agent at, again, a writers conference. And I said to myself, if he says no, this is my sign. I'm going to go indie, because I was on the fence whether I go traditional, indie. And
Mhm.
so whether you want to do traditional or independent, you can make it happen for yourself. It takes patience, whichever route you go. But that's another thing I've learned is that you can't make it happen unless you work at it, and you
Mhm.
can make it happen as long as you set those goals and work hard at it and meet those goals. And of course, along the way, I've learned a lot about grammar and
Mhm.
characterization and plots and arcs and right tension and all that stuff. But really, that's all the stuff that you kind of learn along the way. But unless you sit down and tell yourself, I'm going to do this, it's really never going to happen. And the
Mhm.
book's not going to get written unless you write it. So I don't know if that answers
Yeah,
your question, but it's yeah, just knowing, yeah, learning that you can do it. It's
Yeah.
possible.
I think yeah. I
I
think it's a
love that
great
answer. That's such a really good answer.
yeah, it really is. Especially because so many people suffer from imposter syndrome. So just
Oh,
like being like,
yes.
you can do it, you just have to do it. Like
Yes.
it's such a simple message, but it really is important. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree. And people who have been published still suffer from imposter syndrome. What am I doing
Absolutely.
here? I don't belong here. Yes, you do belong here. Of
Neil
course you belong
Gaiman
here.
has talked about imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, and I'm like, he is an amazing writer. So yeah, if he still feels
Yes.
that way, yeah, we all have hope.
If Neil, we can get over it. Be like Neil.
Right.
We love him. He's great.
Well, there's that saying that like somebody who knows a lot will say they don't know very much, and somebody who says very confidently that they know a lot really knows very little. And
Right.
so at some point, I feel like that applies to imposter syndrome too, where you're just like, if you don't have any doubts about how good you are at writing,
you're probably not a very good writer.
maybe we don't want to have that mindset anyways. Maybe we want to have a little doubt.
You know enough to know how much you don't know.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. And we're still learning all the time.
Yeah. You should never stop.
Mm-hmm. No, you really should.
And if you love it, then the learning process is fun. Learning more about your craft is fun.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned learning character arcs as part of your learning from the writing process, because I think that very few people can do like episodic type novels well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's if you can do that, kudos, because that's hard. Like to have your character change and grow and evolve and still have it be interesting, like Sherlock Holmes, you know what I mean? Like,
that's exactly who I was thinking. We can't all be Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
No, we can't. But I love writing a good character arc where,
I didn't even like Sherlock very much.
Yeah. Right. He's definitely a strong personality.
Hello.
My daughter's joining us.
Mm-hmm. So this actually leads perfectly into our next question. Coming from button chair, hands on your keyboard, how do you make time for writing?
That's very difficult sometimes because my kids are all in school now. So you'd think I'd have all this time, but it definitely requires self-discipline. And a lot of times what keeps us from writing is that writer's block. So I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write next. I don't want to sit there with my mind blank. So what helps me is if I make it kind of an experience. That sounds kind of odd, but I get my drink, my herbal tea, or I also drink Creo Brew. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Kind of like coffee, but made out of cocoa beans. It's amazing. Anyway, that's my little plug. Yeah. I get my drink and I get my music, and maybe I'll light a candle, or I have these flameless ones here that are super fun when it's dark. I turn those on and it kind of sets the mood.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can make everything in your setting for your writing perfect, and it still just doesn't happen. So really what I have to do is either schedule the time, say, this is when I'm going to sit down and this is when I'm going to write, or you have to put off other things. Sometimes I have to put off other things. There's a load of laundry that I need to fold, but you know what? I got a deadline. I've got to have to finish this first. Or, the kids are gone. That Zelda game is really calling my name.
Right.
But if I sit down, I will not get back up. And those of you who have played Zelda, like the Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very addictive. But you really have to have a lot of self-discipline, and you have to make that decision that I want this to be my job. And if I want it to be my job, I have to treat it like a job. That requires setting aside that time.
Yes.
So a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom is responsible for my book being delayed by another month.
Right. Right.
It's such a good game. I played it this morning.
Right. I like to use things like that as a reward. Like if I do 20 minutes of writing, then I can play the game for a little while.
Yes.
I don't have the self-discipline for that. I will be like 1 hour. I'll play for 1 hour, and then I'll start to do what I need to do. And like I'm playing along, and I'm like, it's dark.
What happened? Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that trap. Yes. But no, I like setting that timer where I'm gonna play this for an hour. And Kirsha, yes, exactly. That's what I do too. I set the timer and then the timer goes off. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this one little thing that I'm doing. Which of
and then
course
3
can lead
hours
to
later,
another 3 hours later, of course. But then the book doesn't get written. And I, to be honest, haven't written a lot this last year because I was organizing this writers conference. But now that it's over, I feel like I have more brain space for it. So I keep telling myself, let's schedule that time. Let's sit down, even if it's at night after the kids go to bed. I know a lot of writers who are moms can relate to that. When it's quiet and peaceful, and even if you have no idea what you're going to write, just write garbage if you have to. Write out some garbage. You can edit a garbage page. You can't edit an empty page. And I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
So
yes, my personal mantra is let it suck.
Yes.
Take a deep breath. Let it suck.
Yes. Embrace it.
Embrace it. Get it on the page.
Yes.
I think scheduling is a great way of looking at it because I was one of those people, like, I've always had to-do lists. I've always been like, I'm prioritizing these 3 tasks today. And then I just procrastinate all day and don't get anything done. But if I'm like at 11 o'clock, I'm doing this task, I'll actually do it because I've set a time for it. And so that I can't procrastinate because I'm like, I have to do this at 11. Like that has made a huge difference. And that's something that I'm turning 38 in November. I've just now figured that out. So, pass along the wisdom to others, but like I'm still figuring myself out and my self-discipline. So, that might help.
Oh, I'm 41 and I'm still figuring that out too. So we never stop figuring that out. Right. Another great way to get yourself in the chair to write is to give yourself a deadline, whether it's giving yourself one or setting up a time with an editor. If you want to hire an editor to look over your work, sometimes they're scheduled out a few months and that gives you some time to finish up your work. And if you have a deadline, it lights a fire. It lights a fire under you. So you get that stuff done. Yeah. That's a good way to help yourself have a little bit more self-discipline.
Yeah. No, that's a good trick. We got to trick ourselves sometimes to do what we want to do.
Yep. Nothing motivates quite like a deadline.
Nothing helps your productivity like just panic.
Yes.
Right. Panic and stress got me through a lot of school. Yes. All right. Do you have a favorite part of writing?
Oh gosh. Probably making up my characters. I love my characters. I like to think that they are just wonderful, flawed, beautiful little babies out in my universe that I adore. So yeah, probably making up my characters is my favorite part. And writing kissing scenes. That's fun too.
Oh yeah. The tension and the suspense. Is he or is he not? Yeah.
Yes.
Payoff. It's the payoff of just it's all come together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No, meet cute. Like I don't write a ton of romance, but I do like to write because it's part of life, romance in my book. So it's a subplot for a lot of my stories. But the meet cute, those are so fun to think of. Like, how did they meet? How did they first start catching feelings? Like, that's so fun to write. Yeah, think about. It is.
Oh, yeah. That the romance part is, that's another one of my favorite parts. Is the subplots. That's super fun.
All right. So that's your favorite part of writing. What is your least favorite part of writing?
Beginnings, climaxes, and editing.
Yes.
That one's not hard to answer.
No, that one is not.
Oh, there's some stress on the first page. Everyone's like, your first 2 lines have to be like your hook. Like you have to hook the reader, or they're going to shut the book, and they'll never read it. And it's just so much stress to try to come up with the perfect opening line.
Exactly.
I find that most people will write a better beginning once they've reached the ending, though. Like once you've written the story, because like if you agonize over chapter 1, you may never move on. But if you write the whole story, then a lot of times you'd be like, oh, this is the perfect start. because you
Oh
figured
yeah.
out what happens in the book. Yeah, so
I
that
had
can
a
be helpful.
different beginning for Fathom, my
Hmm.
first book, for years. And
Right.
then not long before I actually published the thing, I completely rewrote chapter 1 and it was
Yeah.
so much better, so much stronger,
Right. Right.
but you can always change it. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
beginnings are difficult.
Right. Right. But we can let it suck first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have any influences for your writing?
Any influences? Probably my favorite authors.
Yeah.
Um, the ones I described before heavily influence me. I'm also deeply religious, so I'm a firm believer in prayer, and that is definitely a help to
Hmm.
help my mindset really.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the authors that I've always enjoyed reading. I'm looking at my bookshelf now. I
Yeah.
always help.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jane Austen, J.R.R. Tolkien,
Right.
huge. I mean, I don't write the same type of genre as he does or as he did,
Right.
but wow, to have that much imagination, just someone
Yeah.
I really look up to is J.R.R. Tolkien. Um, J.K. Rowling, you
Mhm.
know, you can say what you will about J.K. Rowling, but she really created something special.
Mhm.
And so many people enjoyed and loved and grown up with her stories. So yeah, I'd say she's a heavy influence as well. Just the way that she can tell a story and create a world.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Awesome. All right. How do you deal with writer's block?
Um, that's a tough one. The only way that I've been able to break through that is again just to sit down and write.
Mhm.
Words begat words. Beget words.
Yeah.
Is that the right word for it? Yeah. I deal with writer's block by sitting down and writing anyway.
Mhm.
Sometimes it helps to take a break and walk away from it for a little while. And sometimes
Right.
you really just need to sit down and write. And another little trick that I learned, and I can't remember who it was that said this, but it said, make a sandwich. And I thought, that is so funny. Make a sandwich. Whether, I don't know if they were meant like literally get up and go eat something or
Right.
have your characters make a sandwich and write the scene. I've
Mhm.
done that. There is a scene in one of
Yeah.
my books where the character says, "Would you like a sandwich?" And it's in my series. It's published.
Right.
It worked for me. I was having a really hard time. And if anybody has read my books or is going to read my books and comes across that scene, they're gonna know, oh wow,
Right.
Amy really got blocked at this part. And so she decided to have this character make a
Make a sandwich.
sandwich. It works.
Right.
And whether you keep it in the story or not is completely up to you, but it helps
Mhm.
to kind of get things flowing. And once you write, more
Right.
words will come.
Yes, yes. I love that. Words
Mhm.
beget words.
Mhm.
Because like what Louis L'Amour, the famous quote where he says sometimes you have to turn the faucet on for the water to come out, you know.
Yes.
So this is very true. I find that a lot of times when we have writer's block, it's kind of because like we're trying to force the story to do something that just isn't right for the story too.
Mhm.
So if that's the thing, then it's just like okay, got to kind of figure out where did I go take a wrong turn and how can I
Mhm.
switch that around. But yeah, having them do like a mundane thing, like having like that prompt really helps. Yeah,
Mhm.
make a sandwich.
Make a
Gonna,
sandwich.
that
Yeah.
is in my arsenal now, so I'm going to
There
use
you
Mhm.
that at
go.
some
You
point.
can
We
figure
learn
out what kind
something.
of
We
sandwich they
learn
like.
Yeah.
every single show. We learn something new.
Yeah, it reminds me too of the Bing Crosby movie where she's having a hard time sleeping, and White Christmas is the big. Yeah, I think it's called White Christmas. It's the big song at
Yes.
the end. but she's like, and he talks about sandwiches and is like, well, what kind of sandwich you want is going to affect what kind of dream you have. So, you know, that's not a bad thing to do. It gives the character something to do and talk about that you can really can work for the story. What has been your most significant writing victory so far?
Probably publishing my first trilogy has been
Yeah.
one of my victories. Just getting it done.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, it
You
is
know,
quite an accomplishment.
I'm not the, let's see, Sarah J. Maas, but I am a published author, and that's definitely
Yeah.
something to be proud of.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely is. One book is an accomplishment, let alone three, let alone you keep going. So that's amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are you reading right now?
Okay, now I have to think about it. I usually listen to audiobooks, and I was listening to All the Stars and Teeth.
Okay.
And I can't remember the author. I should have had that pulled up. But very imaginative, very well written. I'm not finished with it yet. I'm also reading, if you don't
Adeline
mind,
Grace.
bear with me for just 1 second. I'm going to grab it.
No problem.
Google has declared that All the Stars and Teeth is by Adeline Grace.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you,
All the Stars
Google.
and Teeth
Yes.
by Adeline Grace. Yeah. And a good narrator too. So I recommend that one.
Okay.
And I'm also reading, this is from fellow indie author Zemi Morris. She is my girl. She's a friend on TikTok. And this is a very interesting play on Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
A very different twist on the fairy tale. I'm not finished with it again, still not finished with this one either, but I really like the take that she went with, because it doesn't focus on the story before she's cursed. It focuses on the story after she's cursed and wakes up. So also recommend that one. It's a good one.
Yeah. I love the cover too. The cover's gorgeous.
Yes. Isn't it beautiful? I'll show that again.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is my favorite question, and a lot of people maybe hate it because it feels judgmental, but is there writing advice that you hate? Just really does not mesh with you.
Oh, the writing advice, the one that really makes me cringe is when people say to vary your dialogue tags.
Okay, yeah.
And that's kind of specific, honestly. And to each their own. If you want to say he declared or he exclaimed, sure. Do you. But whenever I see that, I saw that, I think, on Pinterest or something. There's like a whole different list of suggestions rather than saying said. And it's like, you know what? You don't have to have a tag. As long as you know who's speaking, you don't have to have a tag at all. It's just so that you can keep track of who's talking. So said is like, it's kind of invisible. The reader skims right over it. So it's meant to help immersion in the story, so you don't get jarred by this.
Right.
She questioned or whatever.
Yeah.
Dialogue tags are tricky and controversial.
Oh, very. Yeah. And again, to each their own. If you like your fancy tags, keep your fancy tags. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of them, but
there's a
personally, not my thing.
Yeah, there's a time and place. Middle grade fiction, you want to be teaching new words and entertaining. But like if you're, sometimes they can be jarring and just kind of pull you out of the story. So I think it's all about a balance, and it's all about like what's appropriate. Like if it's the perfect word for that sentence, absolutely use a fun word. But like everyone, like if some people are like said is dead and they like will never use said, and then it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like too much spice where it's like, okay, now everything is an exclamation point and everything's punctuated, and it's just like it loses its shine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky because the general rule that I follow is you don't want to say it unless it's not obvious. So you would never
Mhm.
say
Right.
the green grass because the grass is pretty much always green. You don't
Right.
need to say it. So you would say the red grass because that's unexpected. You don't need
Right.
to be like,
Right.
are you okay? They questioned because it's obvious that it's a question. You don't even need to,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
no.
Right.
And the other thing is, I'm contradicting myself a little bit, is absolutes. I mean, if I
Right.
say don't ever use fancy dialogue tags, of course not.
Right.
I
Right.
use different ones sometimes too. I do have a rule of thumb that I like to stick to, but there's no such thing as an absolute. And what
Right.
works really well for one author is not going to work so well for another author. So we cannot deal in absolutes. We have to try
Right. We're
and
not
see what
to.
works for us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we absolutely like that's. I find that's the most common answer is like whenever it says never or always. People hate
Mhm.
that advice. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly.
All right. We do want to give people an opportunity to learn more about you and your books and where they can find you online. So go ahead and share your socials and your if you have a website.
Yes, I do. My website is authorllstandage.com, and you can find my books on Amazon. You can search LL Standage, or you can search the titles of my books. Book 1 is Fathom, book 2 is Chasm, and book 3 is Reach. They are mermaid urban fantasy.
Do you want to
Um,
show off the covers?
I would love to. This
Yeah.
is book 1. Me and my lovely daughter
Ooh,
here will show you. This is book 1.
yes.
And I've still got my little
Oh yeah.
bookmark in there. And this is book 2. You can also see
Oh,
the spelling of these titles. Yeah,
yeah.
my designer is Molly Phipps with We Got You Covered Book Design. She's amazing.
Yeah,
And this
those
is
are
book
great
3.
covers. Oh, yeah.
So, yes, lots of
Love
fun.
those.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. You've been absolutely wonderful to talk to.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
fun.
It's been a pleasure for sure. And thank you to everyone who's listening along at home. Remember to catch us next week on Friday when the next episode airs. And remember, there's always more than one way up the mountain. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, you can find us on social media at The Tell Not Show, or you can email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thank you again so much and have a wonderful night.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach and can be found at hijinksrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to 4, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks and see you next time.